Glad you could join me. Today I'm going to be making a stand for a fire pit. I've got one on order anyway, so I figured might as well just do a quick video of me making one of these stands. It's quite a groovy stand. The legs have a cool sort of flowing groovy shape. I always do them different shapes and all random, whatever I design in the moment, I suppose you could say. But it's quite a cool design to this fire pit. So I figured I might as well just make a video and show you how I make one. So the bowls I don't make, I buy these in, as this is, to get something like this even for me in my shop is quite hard. To actually create a shape like this without, a swage or this. I think these are actually spun on it's sort of like a lathe-like machine, you spin them to get the shape. And so, of course, it's then going to have a nice even shape to it. But for me to try and do this by hand, without any swages, without a special spinny tool, is going to be quite hard to get it even. So I just buy them in. So sorry to disappoint a viewer wanting to see how I make the bowls. I don't make the bowls, I just make the stands. But it is quite a nice stand that I do on this. But I'll start on the bowls so you can see it doesn't have any holes in the bottom. So if you light a fire in here at the moment, it's not really gonna get enough air. There is a bit of, due to the shape of the bowl, it can get air in from the sides, but I find drilling a load of holes in the bottom does mean that it can really, you really get a nice fire. It's not just smoking. So I'll flip it over, and then these holes, I'm not really going to be very accurate with these holes, but it doesn't particularly matter. I quite like to try do them as accurately as I can. So I'll use just a straight edge, a piece of steel, eyeball the center here, and do the same on the other side. Just dot the middle. And now I'll drill this hole, and then I can scribe a circle for the other holes. I've got the hole drilled in the middle there, and it's 6.5 millimeters, so they are quite big. But that's so that the air can get in, but also the ash can fall out, and then the ash will just blow away in the wind, because you're not really going to be using this inside. It's always going to be outside. Anyway, I've set my compass, or calipers, whatever you want to call them, and we can now shove that in the hole and get a nice circle going all the way around, which gives a very faint line, which I now have to try and see. But if I mark all of these holes, I can then drill them and get them all, at the same radius to the center. There we go, all the holes drilled, so we can leave this now. I'll put this to one side and we'll start working on the legs. I'm going to forge the legs out of a piece of 16mm round bar, and I'm going to do 3 legs and all sort of different designs, and the designs I'll just come up with as I'm forging them. But the first thing to do is put a nice long taper on the bar. But to do that, because you notice my forge is right up against a wall, so if I start forging on the end of the bar and try to draw a taper all the way back, I won't actually be able to get it in the fire. But if I start the heat from this end and draw it out that way, I can manage to get this section of steel through there. There is a little bit of a gap behind the fire, behind the forge, so I can get sort of like the middle of the bar in the fire and then draw the taper out, and I'll end up with a much longer taper than I will be able to make than if I just started at the end and worked it back. So doing this technique, you sort of heat like a 6 or 8 inch section, finish that completely, then do the next section, do the next, just gradually draw a taper out. It's going to take some time, because I've got to do it all by hand. I don't have a power hammer, but it'll be nice once I've got this nice long elegant taper that I can then forge into this weird shape. I can now begin to put the shape into this, and I'm just gonna forge whatever comes to me as I'm doing it, so I'll design it as I'm going. Basically just established a bit of a base in this shape that I've got going on, a bit of a whiplash. So that'll be what's actually contacting on the floor. So this has quite a reasonable surface area contact to the floor. So hopefully that's going to be sturdy enough. And then the rest of this bar, I don't know, maybe a bit of a spiral up or a wiggly thing. I don't know. Whatever takes me fancy when I'm doing it. Let's just get stuck in. I find that's the best thing to do with this. Trying to draw something like this, I personally find really hard. Whereas when I actually have the steel, making it, I find is just a much better way to design things. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes you do this and you're like, yeah, that one not so good. It didn't go as planned. But sometimes, most of the time I find that this is my preferred way of forging. Just get a piece of steel in the fire, get on with it, get designing whilst making. Maybe it's not the best approach, but it's the approach that I like to do. That is a pretty cool shape we got going so far. I think it's nearly done, to be honest. I'll just bend it up so it's now coming sort of square perpendicular to the floor, and then we can get a sort of an isolation or step down, and then drill some holes through that step down where we can then rivet it onto the bowl. So I'll make this little step down at 1.5 inches, and then so I can get 2 rivets, 2 fixing holes through it there. So I've got 2 more legs to make, and then a pair of handles as well, so you can actually pick it up. Because the legs, you know, you can't really, when there's a fire in it, you can't really pick it up by the legs, and the legs are a bit sort of hard to get hold of. So 2 handles on the side just makes it much easier to move about. Moving on to the handle, here's one I made earlier. I'll show you how I've made it with this piece of steel. You can see it's just your bog standard handle, really. A reverse taper to the middle, taper to the ends, and then we've got a sort of leafy, shovely, spadey thing on the end with a nice, I've drilled a 6.5mm hole through it, and that's because I'm using a 6mm rivet, so that'll then rivet onto the outside of the bowl. So I've cut this piece of steel, it's 10mm round, and it's 1800mm long. No, 180mm long. 1800, that'd be quite a long handle. Anyway, yes, 18 centimeters, 180mm long, 10mm round. I'll put this in the fire, and it's literally just, you know, your normal forge your steep taper on the end, isolate that over the far edge, reverse taper to the middle, round that up, spread the end into a leaf, do the same on the other side, put a bit of a nice ergonomic shape in it so you can actually get your hand in there. I'll quickly show you how I've done it with this piece of steel. I'll now use a cross peen to spread that isolated material to give us that spade shape. If you can't quite forge the shape, you can always come back in with a grinder and do a bit of profiling on the outside, but that seems to be pretty good. I'll do the same to the other end and then show you how I put the bend in. This is the jig that I've come up with to put the bend in these handles. I've been making quite a lot of fire pits recently, so I decided to make a bit of a jig, or use this jig that I already had, which is literally just a piece of pipe. I used it for bending up circles, really, small circles, but it works perfectly just to put that radius on the handles, and it's so much quicker using something like this. It's a really simple jig, but it's so much quicker. You know, I'll be a heat on it and get it perfect on this rather than taking a brushed heat to get the bend in at the anvil. Anyway, I'll show you how to do it. It's really simple. I just get that piece, put it on there, hold it in a pair of tongs and bend it around. I'll heat this back up and just bend the spades out so they're actually going to sit flush with the edge of the fire pit. So I can just hold this in a pair of tongs, bend it out, and then check that I'm sort of at the right angle. So I can now drill the holes 6.5mm, and then we can rivet the handles onto the bowl along with the legs. I've got all the pieces forged out, and you can see I've drilled the holes in the top of the legs. So I've got 2 more legs and 2 handles. I'll rivet them all onto the bowl, which is down there, and I'm going to do it at the anvil, so I'll get it set on the horn and then do the inside of the rivet on the face of the anvil. And I've drilled holes all around the side of the bowl so I can put all the legs on in the correct places. The rivets, I've cut a little section of 6mm round, so I am going to do this hot. If I do it cold, these can work, harden and crack. So I'm going to do it hot, and I've just got to be careful when sectioning off my material so I get a nice even rivet head forming. There we go. I'll now get this leg as square as I can, drill through that hole, then rivet it on there as well. I've got to do that 2 more times and then get the handles on, and then it'll be done. So just a bit of riveting, but I'll put it all on a time lapse for you so you still get to see it. To finish the fire pit, I've coated it in a layer of heatproof paint, and I think that is the best finish for these. You know, a beeswax finish or something like that is going to degrade over time, as they are going to be outside, and also there's going to be a fire in it, so the heat from the fire will burn off the beeswax or the oil that you're going to put on. So I think a heatproof paint is the best finish for it. That, again, outside over time, it will rust, so it does need to be maintained, but I think it, you know, it looks good. As a blacksmith making anything, generally it's going to come in black, so we're in keeping with it coming in black with a heatproof paint. But I think it looks good. You can see the stand there. That's the bit which, of course, I've made with these nice groovy legs. They're all different designs. You know, they're just whatever I come up with when I'm making them. So every single one of these fire pits is different. They all have their own unique design. Just whatever I make in the moment. So thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and maybe learned something about making one of these groovy shapes. It was a bit hard to sort of film it, and it's hard to describe or explain how I'm making them, because every time I make them differently. And it's sort of one of those things that you develop over time, and you try to develop an eye for it. I'm not the best at it, you know, but you try and develop an eye to understand how the steel should flow, and then you have to develop the skills to get the steel to do what you want it to do. So it is a tricky shape to form, and I still find these sort of fluid flowing shapes quite hard to make. I still find them quite hard to make, but overall I like the look of them, and just 2 handles on there as well, so you can actually pick the fire pit up. That's about it. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you on the next one.